Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Are you in position so you're not creaking?
I am in position.
Okay.
You may fire one ready, Gridley.
So, Kaylee, can I ask you a question?
Hey, Lionel.
Hey,
you
Kaylee.
May ask me a question.
Hey, Kaylee.
Hey, Lionel.
Hey, Kaylee.
Lionel.
And before Bruce, moderately agitated mailboy, gets here, do you know if this is the first podcast since the last podcast?
All right.
Keep out of my desk.
Oh, when did you show up?
Bruce is here. Hey,
I guess Bruce is here.
All right.
I relinquish my duty.
Bruce, do you know if this is the first podcast since the last podcast?
Well, I'm taking a look at my desk, and it's obviously somebody's been pawing around through my notes and stuff because things are not where I left them last. So,
was it me?
Just let me see if I can find my book of stuff here. Yeah. What's podcast? This one is, let's see, rolling down through. Oops, wrong page. Yes, it is.
Okay. So that means we're ready to go. So tonight, this is a podcast. This is an interview that was, I guess it was first brought to our attention because this gentleman sent us an email about what he does. It's his business is called NixTrainz, Nix, then the word trains, Trains.
No, Z.
I knew that.
Okay, just testing you.
Yeah, I was testing you.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah,
exactly. That how it works?
Exactly. Well, let's go with that for now.
Okay.
So anyways, gentleman's name is Nick Santo. He contacted us through viewer mail. We read his viewer mail on the air. And then I said to Kaylee, hey, do you know what this is? And then Kaylee says, hey, this is really cool. So then Kaylee said, I'm going to contact the guy and see if he wants to be on the podcast. And so now he's holed up. He's handcuffed in the. So then we went and got him in and put a hood over his head and drove him back to Busted Knuckle. And he's been handcuffed in the green room for quite some time now.
Hopefully, I remember to cut the hole in for his nose.
Yeah. I hope you cut the hole.
Kaylee can get him. I'm not going down there.
Yeah. If when you open the door, kind of a smell wafts out of the room, maybe just close the door and keep on moving.
Yeah, that might be a good plan. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's see. Hey, Nick.
Yeah.
Hey, he lives. Okay, come on in. Oh, let me get that thing off for you. Here, hold on tight. Hold tight. Yeah. Okay. Got it.
That's a pretty small hole.
Yeah.
You poked in there for air. Are you okay?
Well.
Are you okay, Nick?
Yes, sir.
You look like you've dropped a few since we first saw you. Like, was anybody feeding you, or did we just forget about you altogether?
Actually, nobody fed me, but I lost a couple pounds.
All right. Okay. So you
that plate of bad shrimp still in there.
Yeah, the green shrimp. The mint,
he didn't eat that, I hope.
The mint flavored shrimp.
Yeah.
So you're Nick Santo. And what part of the world do you live in?
I live in Burlington, Vermont in the summertime, and in the wintertime we get in a motorhome and try to visit people in the South.
Oh, yeah? Do you know anybody in the South, or you just show up at people's doors randomly? Or
a little bit of both. We've met an awful lot of nice people along the Gulf Coast and out through Texas and a little bit of New Mexico and Arizona.
Okay, and
you know what's going to happen here, right, Lionel?
No.
Nick's going to be one of the guys who's going to be showing up and knocking on Tom Jacobs' door wanting to see the layout.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
I've been listening to Tom Jacobs' interview, and that's going to be super.
Yeah, it is, isn't it?
Yes, sir.
So just go to the side door. You're pretty much family. And tell him. Would you do me a favor and tell him Lionel sent you?
I will do that.
Yeah, exactly. Because he lives at 1423 Bonnie Meadow Lane in Robesonia, Pennsylvania. And his phone number is area code 418 962-3447.
Boy, that sounds great. Once in the fall and once on the way back in the spring, and sounds like once in the summer next year.
Yeah, exactly. Once in the summer next year for Tom Stock 2020, which I think next summer might be this year, because I think your interview won't be posted for quite some time. So it might even be in the summer this year. While you're listening to this, you'll be somewhere in the South.
Sounds good.
What kind of motorhome do you have?
With Winnebago Journey. It's a diesel pusher.
Diesel
nice
pusher.
Thing.
Yeah, that's a nice unit. How long would that be? Like 40 feet?
No, not quite. 35 and a half. It's an oldie, but a goodie.
Oh, yeah. Hey, when you go to Tom Stock, if you're going to Tom Stock, do you mind showing up in the RV?
Oh, we should. Yeah.
We got a spot saved for you behind this house. The farmer, I'm going to be in contact with the farmer, and we're going to rent that field, and then we can just, we'll set off fireworks and the whole night. We'll have a spectacular fireworks display.
Wow, sounds like fun.
So, Burlington, Vermont, how long have you lived there?
Since 2001. We've lived around here for a long time. I guess I graduated Johnson somewhere around 73, and Johnson's just 40 miles outside of Burlington, and then we moved to Grand Isle and then down into Burlington.
Johnson is a
small town.
Is it a university or something?
Johnson State College was there.
Oh, okay. All right. Home of the fighting.
Fighting the cold, I think.
Home of the fighting the cold.
I got it.
Yeah.
I got it.
Yeah, I get it too. Have you seen a guy up there named Jim Gore by any chance?
No.
Yeah,
no.
He's got a farm up there somewhere, and he's been living in Florida for quite some time, and he thinks he's going to enjoy the winters up there. You probably passed him. You probably passed him last fall.
Yep.
All right. So, what are we talking about? How long have you been a model railroader?
I've got a picture of myself in front of a figure eight that my grandfather built when I was probably four years old, maybe 5 years old.
Okay.
He started me down the road and built wicked train sets for me over time that were really an inspiration. One, to teach me to let me know that I could do it myself, and two, that there were neat things to be done in trains.
Yeah.
And it stuck.
Okay, so we're talking figure eight model railroad, not a figure eight racing like as an Islip Speedway in Long Island, New York.
No, Mark's tin plate.
Mark's tin plate. Okay.
Yep. Wow.
Yep.
Wow, that's cool.
And it grew and it grew and it grew every year. Christmas time, I could kind of expect something bigger and better. And the last iteration, it was two transformers and two complete DC separated loops. And boy, I looked at that and I said, how am I ever going to learn how to run this? And got great enjoyment out of it for many years.
And how old do you think you were at that age when he did that for you?
Probably in the high grades, maybe 5th, 6th, 7th.
Okay. Wow.
Kept it all the way through high school.
That'd be a pretty cool thing for your grandfather to build you.
Yeah, it was very cool.
And then, so you've been hooked into the hobby of model railroading ever since.
Absolutely.
And so did you take a break at all for Cars and Girls?
Yeah, Cars, Girls, college, work, finding a place to put a layout, starting it again. Really 2001 is when we moved into Burlington was when I really started to build again. And I made a deal with my wife. She could have half the cellar. She got the bottom half for books, and I got the middle to the top half to put a train on it. So I got a pretty good area. It's probably 30 by 40 foot area that I built trains in.
Wow, that's cool.
And she's got a lot of books.
That's perfect. And what do you model?
HO, Vermont Railway now, or as close as I can afford to now.
All right. Is the Vermont Railways a regional railroad?
It is a regional railroad. It runs from southern Vermont to Burlington, and actually from Newport all the way down into it might go down into Massachusetts, Turner's Falls.
Oh, really? That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
And
now, Central Vermont wasn't absorbed into as part of the Pan Am systems, right? Or was it absorbed by somebody else? I thought it was somebody else.
Yeah, Central Vermont was originally Canadian National, and recently it's been through a couple sets. Rail America had it for a while, and Genesee and Wyoming had it last, and then Genesee and Wyoming got picked up by a big holding company in Canada, and Canadian National might still have its way and take back over. New England Central, now. And Vermont Railway last month and the month before last, the Hoosick Tunnel had troubles. So instead of going through the Hoosick Tunnel, which goes essentially across from Boston to Albany, was shut down in Adams, Mass. So trains were going up the New England Central over Vermont Railway, down Vermont Railway back into Hoosick Falls, and over into Mechanicsville or wherever they were going from there. So it was kind of an alternate route that Vermont Railway got to run.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of the detour traffic. A lot of my railfan buddies were able to go out and capture traffic on the Vermont Railway system, which it was not a normal occurrence, but due to that, they got a lot of awesome shots and photos of and footages for Pan Am traffic going over the Houston Tunnel via the Vermont system, and I'm kicking myself for not taking any time off to actually go chase it for this essentially once in a lifetime opportunity.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting to see Norfolk Southern, I don't know, 5 or 6 GP38s or GP40s going over the Green Mountain Ridge, and that's got to be a pretty torturous route for small or for large locomotives in particular, but small locomotives too.
Yeah, what a cool railroad. It runs from. Let's see here. I had the map here. Where I got to find the map again. All right, it runs from. Well, that was a bad map. I'm going to go back. I'm going to start over again. It runs from Burlington all the way to Bennington, Vermont. So it's just in Vermont and runs from Burlington to Bennington. Any idea of how far that would be roughly?
Well, I bicycled it once and it was 133 miles. I think in the back of my mind, I say 120 miles between the two cities.
Okay. And you bicycled it once?
Yep.
Because
I had to have some bragging rights for my 50th class reunion.
Ah, okay. So did that take you like 1 day, 2 days?
I did it in 1 day, 15 hours, 12 hours of pedaling.
Holy mackerel.
Wow.
I bet you were beat by the end of that.
And for the next morning too. I almost didn't get out of bed.
I'll bet. How old were you when you did that?
60, 68, 69, somewhere in there.
Perfect.
Wow.
Perfect. Yep. I'm loving it.
Yeah.
I'm loving it. Okay, so now we're so you've got this layout, the Vermont Railroad layout that you've been building since 2001. And then somehow you decided you must have been pretty interested in DCC, obviously.
I was lucky. We had a fellow in Virgins who owned a hobby shop. He was a retired engineer from somewhere in New Jersey, and he decided to do model railroads. And he took Athearn engines and painted them and upgraded them. He put the Northwest Shortline wheels in and put nice. He did a nice job on detailing them, and sold them as custom models. So I got in with him, and they were DC to begin with, and his name was Carl Chester. I said, Carl, isn't it about time we get into DCC? And no, you don't want to do that. So I kept buying his locomotives, and then one time I went in and he showed me the Atlas series. He had a Green Mountain Railway locomotive that Atlas had put out, and it was DCC. And that kind of started me down that road. He opened the door very, very wide there. He suggested an NCE system, and I went with that, and that's still here beside me, and I'm smiling with it.
Right.
And eventually, I started seeing, living in Burlington, I could see the locomotives, and they had 3 lights or 4 lights instead of just the 2 headlights. I said, wait a minute, ditch lights. Where are the ditch lights on these locomotives? And I started thinking about lighting at that point. And at that time, it was just before QSI, so I put NCE decoders in, and they worked very well. Then the next round of locomotives had the QSI decoders in them, and QSI frustrated me. They had great sound. They had pretty good to good movement, but there was no way you could do anything more with lighting. And at that time, Tony's Trains is just across town, and QSI Solutions was there. Josh Shedeker and Tony Parisi were kind of instrumental in making this side of the country work for as well as it was going to for QSI. And Josh and I went back and forth, and I was in there quite a little bit, and we still couldn't make the ditch lights work for the locomotives. So I kind of put that on the back burner for a while and got busy again with life, and came back to it after I retired. Retirement scared the devil out of me. I don't know what I'm going to do with this retirement thing. And so we shut down the business, and I went home and went into the cellar and started looking at the ditch light situation again. And I said, well, I'm going to have to do something. About that time, I got the 2 SD70 Aces that came up from Florida East Coast to Vermont Railway.
Okay. So what business did you shut down?
I ran a flight school, or my wife and I ran a flight school for 20 years.
Oh, wow. In Burlington.
In Burlington. Yep.
Wow. That's cool. Well, we'll have to ask you questions about that. But all right. So anyways, a couple of locomotives. What'd you say they were from the Florida East Coast?
Florida East Coast. They were Athearn locomotives, and they had Soundtrax decoders in them. And I wanted ditch lights, and I talked with Eric Fisk at Tony's, and we both went back and forth and decided that maybe lock sound was the way to go. So I did lock sound in them, the select directs, and started soldering to those. And I liked them. Went over to look at the old QSIs and the Atlas GP38s and GP40s, and the select directs were too long. They're kind of 4 years on either end of a lot of decoders, where you add headlights and the track wires.
Right.
So I had to. I looked at the situation and said, "Oh well, I guess maybe I'll cut off the track wires on one end and do a little bit of rewiring on to get those back into the decoder." And I did that.
Okay, so I'm getting confused now, which is not unusual if you've ever listened to the podcast. So where does NixTrainz come into all this?
Well, that was the birth of it right there. I had a frustrating situation, and I developed or went through a bunch of iterations of making it work, and finally sent out and got a printed circuit board made that would fit in the locomotive, and it worked. And I took a deep breath and said, maybe I should get 1,000 of these and see if they'll sell.
Okay.
And that was the beginning of it.
So can somebody explain to me exactly what it is he's selling? Kaylee?
So, Lionel.
Kaylee?
Hey, Lionel.
Mm-hmm.
So what it is basically a lot of times when you buy locomotives from manufacturers nowadays, they all have this light board, right?
Right.
And this light board may or may not contain access point where you could drop in the decoder. Back in the day, when you were doing DCC installs, you had basically 3 flavors of styles. You had the old 8-pin, right? You also had, actually maybe 4. You also had the 9-pin JST, which a lot of folks was using. Athearn was very exclusive in doing that. But then you also had 21 pins. But then the 4th style, you also had what they call a direct replacement. So if you can imagine the light board that has that unique, I don't even know how would you describe it, the K shape or a dog bone shape. It looks like a
right.
dog bone.
Yeah.
That a lot of the DCC manufacturers made a decoder that was the exact shape of it.
Okay.
However, in certain instances, it didn't fit the locomotive, and notoriously Atlas was the biggest culprit because they had buddied themselves with QSI, and QSI kind of dictated their board style, which then resulted in Atlas designing their weight system to accommodate that. Well, unfortunately, QSI also tend to go do things their way. And so because of that, if you wanted to change out or needed to replace the QSI, no other direct replacement would fit into it. And that's what Nick was having issues with. There was that dog bone shaped decoder, what Luxsound calls the direct. It was just too long. It didn't fit in between the weights.
Right.
So in doing so, Nick had developed this board system that allows you to tap into another style, which namely the 21-pin style decoder, that replaces the existing factory light board.
Okay.
And then allows you to drop in the decoder.
Did you get all that, Bruce?
Yeah, I'm recording so I can play it back later and understand it. but here's a nutshell. He came up with something better.
Okay, all right. It's something that replaces the light board, makes it easier to install a decoder.
Yes.
That's
what I got out of it.
Yeah. Is that probably where we're at, kind of? And who is QSI? Like, I mean, just so people understand what QSI is. They are a decoder manufacturer?
They were a decoder manufacturer.
They still have a website.
They exist, but I don't think they're doing anything major. They haven't really released anything new since their latest release, which was, I think, the Titan.
The Titan, Titan U Universal HO Sound Decoder?
Mm-hmm.
So they have new product on hand and available for immediate sale direct from QSI. So they must still be going somehow.
Yeah, there was a lawsuit a few years ago involving QSI, and I don't know whatever came of it. So during that lawsuit, they were kind of quiet.
Okay, and they're in Beaverton, Oregon.
Yeah, I think someone did. So, I forget the exact story. Someone may have bought them out, and then and that's why you're seeing they're starting reproductions again.
So you put whenever possible, you only put QSI decoders in your decoder installs. However, if they weren't available, you can't do that. So you mostly use, what do you use, Kaylee?
I use a variety of things. I've everything from Lux Sound to Soundtracks to TCS. Those are pretty much the big threes. My personal opinion of QSI is that the only locomotive they fit is the trash can.
Oh, that's a good locomotive too. It runs well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Except everything.
Yeah, except everything. All right. So Nick, somehow you decided to build something that would replace the light board.
I did.
And this was in the early 2000s.
Maybe actually probably about 2014 or 15.
Oh, okay. So you haven't been going that long then.
No, this is the end of my, or just the beginning of my second year.
Oh, all right. Okay. Well, you've only been doing it for 2 years. Well, that's cool.
Yeah.
And how's business?
Brisk.
Is it?
Yes, it's very good.
Because I guess a lot of more newer manufactured locomotives come with all the bells and whistles as far as decoder goes if you buy them DCC ready. Am I guessing that right, Kaylee?
If you buy them DCC equipped.
Equipped, yeah. But there's tons and tons and tons of locomotives out there that aren't in the, that need the Nick's Decoder Buddy.
Right. It certainly makes installation much, much simpler.
Okay. So yes.
Especially with the way that he designs the light board, and I'll let Nick explain more of that so I don't steal his thunder.
Well, you don't mind, Nick, so if we steal your thunder, so long as we're
steal it all. Yep.
Exactly. Okay, so all right, so you've both only been in business a couple of years, and you say you bought 1,000 boards.
That was a deep breath doing that. I didn't know whether I'd ever even think of selling 1,000 boards.
And how many of that 1,000 do you have left?
None.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you ordered another 1,000 and another 1,000, or where are you at now?
I think I'm coming up through 5,000.
Holy mackerel!
Yeah, big surprise to me.
You got a hit on. You got it.
Scott Thornton and his proto throttle. Think I'll sell 500?
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Do you think you'll sell 1,000? So, what do these things cost?
Manufacturer's price is $16.
All right. So, if I was to buy one off of you, it's $16.
Yep.
All right. But you sell as many as 20 at a time.
I do, and I discount for model railroaders. I looked at 15 or 16 locomotives, and I said, "Wow, $16 a throw for all my locomotives? That's an awful lot of money. I got to discount this for guys."
Okay. So yeah,
I've done that, and actually, if you go onto the internet, you'll find them for a better price than what I sell them for.
Oh, really? So you sell them to distributors, and you can even get them cheaper than what you sell them for, and yet you're still selling them for only $10 each if you buy 20.
Yep.
Which is pretty darn reasonable, if you ask me.
Not bad at all if you're going there. Okay, Nick. Suppose I want to. I've got a locomotive. I want to get one of your decoder buddies in it. Which one is the proper one to buy? I guess it depends on what I want to do and how difficult it is to install and hook the decoder up to it.
When you have a locomotive in front of you, you have 4 wires that come up from the trucks. So you have 4 wires to solder, 2 to each end of the board. You have a pair of motor wires that go from the motor to the board. And I say that with a smile over here, even though you can't see the smile. People ask which wire goes onto which pad, and it depends. So I think the best way to do it isn't to solder it too tight. See which way the locomotive works when you put the decoder in, and then solder it on tight when you get it right. And then there are pads for speakers. There are 2 pads for speakers on one end of the decoder and 2 pads on the other, just to make it easy to get to your speakers without spreading a lot of wire around. And there are a couple pads for stay alives, and that's about it.
Okay, I'm looking on your website. It's got each end of track A, speaker 1, speaker 2, and track B. What is the track A and track B all about?
Track left, track right.
Okay, so those will be the leads coming up from the trucks.
Exactly right.
Okay.
And the speakers are in parallel. So if you wanted to put speakers on either end, or maybe one in the tender or one in the locomotive, then you could split the you could install them that way. The motor leads are on the side, are on one side, along with the U plus and ground stay alives. Then what I saw in the locomotives was a need to, in general, and not all locomotives, but quite a few, you put your LEDs into the shell. That's not true across the board. Some of the old light boards had the LEDs attached to them, so that when you attach the light board, it kind of fit in, and the LEDs kind of snuggled up to where the lights were. The alternative is to take an LED and attach it to where the actual light, headlight or ditch light or whatever is, and run leads up through. Most times that happens through the shell. So I saw that it would be good. Actually, I stole the idea from the NMRA and the manufacturers. The 21-pin connector was very nice, worked very well with the decoders. And I said, why couldn't I take and get a similar connector and put it on the other end of the board and make a what I call a small connector board that fits on just like the decoder, and attach all the shell lighting wires to that. And that's what I did. There are two decoder buddies of that variety. One has 10 pins for the 8 output models, and then Lokesound came out with their version 5 with 12 lighting outputs. So I upped it to a 14-pin connector, so that you have the positive wire and the 12 functions going out from the board, and it's separable. So if you want to weather your locomotive, you can take that board off, the small connector board off the motherboard, and weather your locomotive away from the frame with a motor in it, and you can use your weathering powders, and they won't get into your motor, and vice versa. If you want to service your motor or service your trucks or whatever, you can leave your nice weathered shell in the other room and take the motor in and work on the frame side of the locomotive.
So that pin, the connector you're talking about, that's the pin, the opposite end from where the decoder plugs in. I see in the pictures.
Exactly right, Bruce.
Okay.
Well, I'm confused.
That's a pretty brilliant idea, actually.
Thank you.
Yeah.
It was another frustration. I just had no love for JST connectors at all.
What are JSD connectors?
If you're familiar with the inside of a locomotive, they're the pins that stick up with a white fence around it, and then there's a plug that fits right into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a lot of times it's a one-way fit, and I always feel like I'm going to wreck things if I take those out.
So I'm looking at this picture of the Decoder Buddy motherboard, and this is just another board that fits on top of the decoder that's already in there. Is that basically what we're looking at? It's not a decoder. It's an add-on to a decoder. Is that correct?
Actually, the way I explain it is, it's kind of the Decoder Buddy is a decoder holder.
The decoder holder.
Yep. Didn't
he play for the Cleveland Indians in the late 50s?
He did. He's a utility player.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he could play third, second.
Yeah.
And
wasn't so good at short.
No, it wasn't. But towards the end of his career, of course, he played first base.
Yeah.
And was a solid hitter, a switch hitter.
Switch hitter, yes. And he's one of the few switch hitters whose average from either side was pretty close to the same. I think he was generally in the high 200s, low 300s.
Yeah. He was in today's Major League Baseball, he'd be a valuable player. He'd be making $20 million a year.
Oh, he'd be a DH, eh?
Yeah, I think in his third or fourth year, he did so well with the Indians that the local Buick dealer gave him a new car.
Well, that could be. I'll have to Google that.
Yeah, one of those big Buick something or others. Whatever, in the 50s, whatever a big Buick was.
But we digress.
Yeah, but we digress. All right, so it's a decoder holder. Similarly named after the great utility player, the Cleveland Indians, and so it fits on top of the decoder that's already installed in the locomotive. Or is this? Yeah, like it would be a decoder that goes with a locomotive that's a decoder that's already there. Am I right? Or is this an add-on to a decoder that you would buy from somebody else? Help me! Somebody help me!
It's something that you get your locomotive from the factory. It's going to have some sort of board in there the decoder's mounted to. This one replaces that board, makes everything easy to wire and everything, and then it's got a pin in there to now take whatever decoder you want to put in. So it tidies up all the wiring inside and gives you a nice spot to put your decoder.
Right, but it's usually aftermarket decoder installations. Yes. Obviously, if you got a decoder equipped, sound equipped, the locomotive right from factory, you wouldn't need to get this because it's all done for you.
Right. So what kind of decoder would you buy? What kind of aftermarket decoder would you buy that this would be an ideal add-on to?
The nice thing about the 21-pin decoder is that it's an NMRA specification, and all the major manufacturers are manufacturing 21-pin decoders that'll fit right on it. So you can use Loc Sound, Soundtrax, TCS, Digitrax, and NCE decoders. They all have 21-pin models, and it just fits right down on that plug.
Okay, yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, is there pictures of those on your website here, like we can look at, so that I might somehow. So, because I see the one that's on the very top, the very first picture on your page is there's a little add-on. I guess it's the little Decoder Buddy Mini or something you call it.
Okay.
And that's the decoder sitting off to the left of it. Is that correct?
This are you on the front? You on the first page?
Very first page, the very first thing you see when you open your website.
Okay. The one that says 40-W and 310.
Yeah.
So what you have there is the original Decoder Buddy,
right?
And down below it, the little square one is the what I call the small connector board, where U plus, or where you put your positive connection to the decoder. Or to the LEDs are on the left and right side of that little square board. There are four holes that are very close together.
Right.
That's where you put your common positive, and then the four separated holes on the top and the four separated holes on the bottom are where you put your auxiliary outputs. So if you want. If you look at it, the one in the lower corner is 0R. So that's where you put your rear headlight, and right directly opposite that is 0F. So you'd put your front headlight there, the black wire, And then A2, which is on the bottom, would go to your rear ditch lights. A1, which is right across from it, would go to your front ditch lights maybe. And maybe your number boards, your rear number boards would go on A4, and your front number boards would go on A.
Okay. So what I'm looking at here on this, Kaylee, is this is the big board, is that a decoder, or is this the Decoder Buddy sitting on top of the original decoder, or the add-on decoder, the loc sound, or?
So if you look at the very first picture on the first website at the very, very bottom, where it says complete assembly with decoder installed, if you in that picture, that very first picture, if you go to, hang on.
It says, welcome to NixTrainz, where DCC decoder installation is made easy.
Okay, so then go at the top where it says instructions.
Yeah. Click
on that.
Yeah.
And then you see that very first picture with the quarter for scale.
Yeah.
In the very bottom of that picture where it says completed assembly.
Yeah.
The green board, right, is the Decoder Buddy, right? That's what's placed into the locomotive. That dark board that sits right on top of it, that's larger.
Okay, I got to stop drinking because they all look green to me.
With a circle on it.
Yes, the one with the circle on it.
Yeah.
That's the decoder. That's a 21 ESU pin decoder.
The circle thing.
The circle one.
Okay.
So that sits on top of the Decoder Buddy.
Oh, okay. That sits on top of the Decoder Buddy.
Right. And then to the right of that is the small connector board, and that's designed to house all of your light connections.
Okay. Okay. Bong.
And the voice of God has spoken.
Yeah. So the short term is you buy this as an accessory to a regular decoder to help you make decoder installation much easier, because original decoders like you would get from ESU or that are much harder to handle, or they just don't have as many connections, or you can't hook up as many lights with an original decoder. Like, I'm trying to understand what it is that this does as opposed to a standard decoder. In 10 words or less.
It simplifies the wiring.
Yeah, it simplifies the wiring.
Thank you, Bruce. Excellent. It does. It makes it a lot neater. And in terms of the number of decoder outputs that are easily accessible, the lighting outputs, it consolidates them and makes them a lot easier to get to.
Okay. And have you had any of these decoder? Have you had my question would be why do we know why decoder manufacturers make it so difficult to install the decoders and do the wiring harder? Like, is there a reason why wiring an actual decoder is much harder without the Decoder Buddy? Do we have any idea what they're doing? Is it just to basically drive model railroaders crazy? Is it a cost thing? Is it they think it won't fit, nothing else will fit? Like, well, how did you manage to figure out we need to make the wiring easier because these guys have made it so complicated? Like, were you just getting frustrated trying to wire in decoders or something?
I was in the Atlas scenario because I had to cut cut some of the wiring tabs that they gave me off to fit it into the Atlas locomotive.
Okay.
And that played into my hand nicely. And when I saw that, I said, wait a minute, this is a lot neater installation. It has ease of disassembly in terms of the small connector board and taking the shell off. And due to its size and the neatness of the installation, I saw that there were advantages there. And Kaylee's going to maybe smile at this. There was a lot of accidental engineering in that. Unintended benefits.
It's not a flaw, it's a feature.
Pardon me?
It's not a flaw, it's a feature.
Like, I guess what I'm asking, Kaylee, is if it's so difficult to install a regular decoder, like, why would they make the decoders like that in the first place, I wonder?
Well, the problem is their technology had advanced, right? We wanted our locomotives to do more, right? It started with the basic decoder had basically 2 outputs, maybe 4 at most. You had front headlight, rear headlight. You had powers coming from the truck, and then motors going to power going down to the motor, and then maybe 1 or 2 other extra light functions, maybe like a number board or a Mars light or whatever, right?
Right.
Well, then sound came along. Well, when you brought sound in, you now had to have 2 extra connections for speakers. Okay, so far still so good. Then came the idea, wait a minute, well, let's cram in more transistors so we can actually get more functions. So now you can control more than just front headlight, rear headlight, number board, and something else. Now you could do ditch lights. Well, that brought the light functions from what used to be just 5 wires. You had your blue wire, which is your positive, then white for headlight, front headlight, yellow for rear headlight, then green and purple.
So when you're saying, hey, let's add more functions, this is on these original decoder boards? The boards were still the same, but there was adding more and more functions to it?
The decoder, right. The decoder was still the same. So it grew and grew and grew to the point where now you needed a new connector style. So the 9-pin originally handled 9 wires. But now with all this extra functions, you needed more than just 9 wires. So then 21-pin kind of came along from the Germans.
Right.
And NMRA was kind of hesitant to adopt it and what have you. And politics aside, eventually it became the de facto standard today. And everyone's going to the 21-pin decoder, 21-pin connections. But with the 21-pin, that means you have 21 wires you have to wire up, or close to 21. I think it's like 16 all said and done. But that's a sidebar topic. But
yeah, let's see if you confuse me more. It's 21-pin, but it's actually 16. But that's neither here nor there.
Yes, so that's not important. The point is, now you had 21 pins, you have all this extra wire, and it quickly became, it was very easy to have a rat's nest inside your locomotive trying to fit all the extra wires into your locomotive.
Right.
What Nick has developed is this Decoder Buddy, which now simplifies it, right? You don't have to, everything is a solder pad. So if you have functions you don't need, you don't have this extra wire that's just dangling in the shell, possibly getting chewed up in the flywheels of the locomotive.
Okay, so where's the extra wire coming from? The 21-pin connector?
It would be coming from the 21-pin connector, correct, on the decoder.
Okay. So the decoder, I remember that vaguely, yes. The decoder would come with a whole pile of wires coming off it. Mm-hmm. So then somehow now you take off all those wires and then you just plug the decoder into the Decoder Buddy?
Right, because the 21-pin decoder is just a plug. It's just a board with a whole bunch of holes in it.
Right.
And then electronic components. And that's designed to fit into a male plug that's either A, built into the locomotive, or B, you buy it, you get it when you buy the Decoder Buddy from Nick.
Right, okay.
And in doing so, now you don't have all this extra extraneous wire sticking out. You just have a solder board that you run your light functions to, or your speaker to, or your keep alive to.
Right. So the only wires you've got going to the Decoder Buddy are just the wires you need.
Exactly.
Okay, and then if you want to keep adding stuff, the Decoder Buddy is plugged into the decoder, so it's just a much easier and neater way to wire up your decoders.
Yep.
Okay.
I think he's got it.
He's got it. By God, he's got it.
So, and is this primarily only on older decoders, or does it work with newer decoders as well? Or does it only...
Well, okay, Kaylee, I'm going to ask you, this would be something, because you've got Lionel's set of locos there. That, to me, if you weren't doing it the way you want, it would be an ideal situation for a Decoder Buddy to put a current state-of-the-art decoder in that unit.
Yep.
Yes?
Exactly.
The with the state of the art moving forward, it was advantageous to me when we went from 8 output functions to 12 output functions, to build a board that had 12 output functions in it, which picked up all the decoders that had maybe 6 or 4 outputs. And with the NMRA standard, you could upgrade from 4 to 6 to 8 to 12 on one board with one connector, one set of connectors.
Yeah, like I'm looking at the Decoder Buddy motherboard, and it's got track B, speaker plus minus, track A. Why is there track B and track A at both ends?
Generally, you have 2 trucks with trucks on either ends with 2 wires coming up from either one.
Okay.
And that goes into the board, and that helps continuity. So that when you go across a frog or something like that, then
sure, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's not just a universal. So I'm going to ask a really confusing question. I see here on this, there's pin 1 down to pin 11, pin 12 up to pin 22. These are the places where you solder your wires to is on those 22 pin pads, or because there's not 22 pads I see around this board for all sorts of lights and things.
Well, it's like Kaylee said. There's not there may be 21 pins, but not all of them get used in the same way. You have I was kind of counting on my fingers. If you have 12 outputs, then you have to have 13 wires. Your 12 outputs plus the common wire is 13. You've got 4 wires coming in from your from your trucks. You've got 2 wires coming in from the motor. You've got 2 wires for speaker. So you're pretty well out through that.
Let me try a different question. Let me try a different angle, see if I can understand this. So how did you end up starting a flight school?
Me. Well, I came out of school as a chemist, and I worked right next to the airport. And I used to look out the window and say, that's neat. And then I learned how to fly. And flying is very goal-oriented. And if you're type 1 or type A, I've been told I'm type A, then you go for the gold every time. So after you get a private pilot rating, then there's the instrument rating, then there's the commercial rating, and then there's the CFI rating, and then you get your airline transport pilot rating. And so, that each one of those was a grab. And
did you ever own your own plane?
We owned, I think, a half a dozen of them at one time.
Holy mackerel.
Yep. We ran a flight school in Burlington and taught a lot of people how to fly down here.
So when did you quit being a chemist?
Good question.
Are some of the questions?
Somewhere around 1998.
1998, and then by that time you had all of your flight licenses, and then you became an instructor. Like, how does one become a flight instructor?
Well, I likened it to having a pimple on your knee and cutting your leg off just below, or just on the top of your leg. I got my private rating and my instrument rating in Burlington, and then I decided to quit my job and go from Vermont to South Carolina and get the rest of my ratings. So I did. That got me far enough away from responsibility so that I could focus on flight training.
Did you tell your wife, or?
Yeah, she was very nice. She let me go, and she came down to visit me once on Little Beach and on the Grand Strand, and then I came back. I was only gone for 3 months, and came back to Burlington and started flight instructing.
And did you buy a plane? What plane did you buy first?
I bought a Cessna 150, a 2-seat small Cessna.
They're tiny, those things.
They are.
I've been in a 4-seater Cessna, and I look like a bear on a mini bike in that thing. And I'm not that big of a guy.
No.
And
according to Tracy, you are a person of size.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. According to Tracy, yeah, I needed both seats, the left and the right seat, exactly. Yeah, and then the next thing I know, a hard part's got his finger in my milkshake. This woman that I'd only just met, she's telling me I'm of heavy girth, and then I turn and I look at hard part. He's got his finger in my milkshake. It was crazy.
Good times.
Yeah, good times, exactly. So okay, and all through this, you're a model railroader as well?
Yep.
And you didn't start a layout until 2001, so were you just kind of bench modeling at this time, or you had a small layout, or what?
I had a small layout. It was in the corner of a house, and in the corner of the bedroom, actually. I don't think it was probably much over 8 feet by 8 feet.
8 feet by 8 feet in your bedroom?
Yeah.
And you're still married?
There was plenty of room. Yeah.
Like, was it like a U shape or something? Because it wasn't one big square or nothing.
Actually, it was kind of a square. It had a cutout for a chimney, and boy, that was before I started to think about what a layout should be, and I had to crawling under it to get to the middle of it. And
okay, so it was kind of one of those old style 8-foot square layouts where there was a pit in the middle and you operated it kind of from the middle kind of thing?
Yep.
Oh, okay. And what year would that have been?
That was probably 92, 93 on up through, maybe for those 10 years.
Okay. And when were you modeling the Vermont Railway then?
Yes.
Are you a Vermont native?
I am. Okay.
And pretty much always been in Burlington, or?
No, actually, I was born in Bennington.
Okay.
Maybe I digress a little bit. One day, I was born on, and we lived on Depot Street in Bennington. And my mother, you didn't have to worry about getting the things you have to worry about today in terms of beating your kids up. She would look at me and I would obey. That was the game. And we lived on Depot Street, and I could see the old Rutland steam engines down in the yard. I, more than anything else in the world, would love to have gone down there, but just didn't do it because I wasn't supposed to. So when I got a little bit older, and after Rutland went away and the 44-tonner went in with Vermont Railway colors, and after it was before Rutland went under. They were running the RSs up and down through, and there was a guy in high school who wanted to be work on the railroad, and he said, "Why don't you go up to Rutland and ask him to ride down on the train?" So I hitchhiked from Bennington to Rutland. It was 56 miles. Went down into the train yard, found the train, found the. I guess I talked with the conductor that day, and asked him if I could. I told him I'd hitchhiked up to Rutland, and asked him if I could ride back down on the train. Well, I might have had him in a corner a little bit, but he at that time you could do things like that, and he said, "Yeah, sure." So he put me in the caboose, and I rode all the way to North Bennington, where there's a absolutely wonderful old station that they've reconditioned and turned it into the public offices there. Just a gorgeous old station.
Right.
And they cut off the caboose and the rest of the train and wanted to go down into Burlington. So I rode in the cab of the RS down into Bennington, and then walked home.
How old were you when you did this?
Probably 16, 15, 16,
Wow,
maybe 17.
That'd be cool. That'd be a cool thing to do.
Yeah.
That'd be very cool.
Of course, you couldn't pull it off today, but that's wow.
No way. But I did. When I had the flight school, when I first started teaching people to fly, a guy came in and he says, "I want to learn how to fly." I said, "Okay, good." I said, "So we got around to where do you work?" He said, "I work for Vermont Railway." Or I said, "Okay. What do you want to do? Fly around and look at the numbers on the top of the cars so that you know where your cars are?" He says, "No, I own the railway." And he was one of the Wolfsons. Gary Wilson and his brother Dave and Lisa were the three children of Jay Wilson. Jay Wilson had something to do with Jersey Central and then came up and bought Vermont Railway.
Right.
So I taught Gary how to fly, got him through it. And then at the end of the flying stint, Dave came in and said, "I want to learn how to fly." Well, at that time, I was busy and I had to put him off onto one of my good flight instructors. And
did you have bad flight instructors?
Not for very long. I had a bad reputation. So he started to learn how to fly, and I got to fly with him a little bit. But I had to say to myself, "Nick, he's here to ask you questions and learn stuff. You can only ask him one train question per lesson." So I drew the line in the sand for myself, and so I would ask him a question and then go on with the flying lesson. So he came in one day and said, "Nick, I want you to be an engineer for me." So for a summer, I was a conductor and then an engineer, student engineer for the Vermont Railway.
Well, how old were you when you did that?
Oh, I had to be up in my 60s. And
time out. How old are you now?
I'm 71.
Okay. So that was like 10 years. So like 10 years ago, you were a locomotive engineer.
Yep. So,
Kaylee, do you go find these guys just to torment me or what?
No comment.
Yeah. So just recently as 10 or 12 years ago, one of the sons that was the son of the guy that bought the Vermont Railway, you taught him how to fly. And while you're teaching him to fly, he turns to you and says, "Hey, you want to be a locomotive engineer?"
Yes. And that's exactly what I said to him. Yes.
So what kind of locomotive were you operating?
I got to run GP18, and they had a GP18 and but mostly GP38s and GP40s. They bought new from EMD way back in the beginning times 201. It was a GP38, and I was very honored to be able to be an engineer on 201 for a little bit.
So can you give us an idea of why he would ask you to be a locomotive engineer? Just because you were good at being a flight instructor, or what?
I think so. I think he had a feeling that I knew about energy management and those sorts of things, and was detail oriented. So he thought it'd be a good idea. Unfortunately, my ears didn't pass the test. So
they were too big?
No. I tell people I can't hear out of one ear and I'm deaf out of the other one. So they were pretty well. They're in pretty tough shape by the time I got to the railroad. So
so you were a student engineer for one summer, and then when you went to take some sort of a test, your hearing didn't pass the muster?
Yep, that was the end of it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
So are you still on, is Vermont Railway still, owned, operated?
Managed? Owned and operated. Yes. Actually, that's an interesting, that's an interesting line too. They're one of the few that, are still privately held by the Wolfson family. I I know for sure that he's had wonderful offers to buy the railroad out. It's a good railroad, and it would look good in some holding company's pocket. But he stuck with his employees, and they're very, very, very highly service oriented. Good people, and so he's kept it all together, and it's probably going to stay that way for a good long time.
So I see here on their website, it says the Vermont Rail System, and then it lists several railroads, the Clairton and Pittsburgh, Green Mountain Railroad, New York and Ogdensburg, Vermont Railway, and Washington County Railroad. Do they own all of these?
Yeah, it was there. It all makes sense. The Clairton and Pittsburgh had probably 20 miles of track. The Ogdensburg run probably has 20 miles of track. It isn't like the Conrail consolidation, but it is on a micro scale. Just very small railroads. Green Mountain was the one that went over the hill that took the most of the
rerouted traffic.
Yeah, rerouted traffic. Thank you, Kaylee. And the Vermont Railway was the old Rutland, and Rutland did go over to Ogdensburg originally, and it's just an old section that got re-upped, renamed in that section of it. One thing they have bought is, and I won't be able to remember all the details, but they just acquired a railroad over in New Hampshire. So they're kind of turning into their own small holding company also. It's all very small, very, very family, very service oriented.
Yeah, we need you, if you come on here, we need you to know all the details.
I promise when I come back, I'll have them.
So yeah, if you go look on their system, it's all connected together except for the Ogdensburg Railroad, the New York and Ogdensburg. It kind of operates on its own, but the rest of them seem to be all pretty much connected.
Yep. Actually, when you go north of Burlington, the Vermont Railway ends at Burlington, Vermont, but it used to go up through the islands, over into New York, stayed all the way into Ogdensburg when it was the Rutland Railroad.
Okay.
So it had quite a long run. The milk trains used to run up through there and back.
Well, there's a lot of fans, like Marty McGurk is a big fan of the Central Vermont. I mean, the Central Vermont was a real rail fan model railroad that everybody really enjoyed, that whole area.
That's true.
And there's that club. What's the club in the Rensselaer Polytechnical Institute? That's what they modeled, was all this area.
Yep.
What happened to those guys? I forget. They got booted out of their...
They got moved out of their space because they were redoing the buildings, remodeling, and they were supposed to be given a space in a commercial spot downtown, I believe, but then I think that has fallen through, so I think they're homeless now.
Bruce, I think I just recently heard that they opened a spot up in Troy, in a commercial space.
They did get it, okay.
Yeah,
I had heard that they were supposed to, and then they were having trouble getting in.
Yeah.
It's one of the more spectacular model railroads of modern times. There certainly was when it was built.
Yeah.
And it seemed like it was in a permanent home, and then they kind of tossed them out of there, which was unfortunate because it was a spectacular model railroad.
Indeed.
University politics.
Yeah, university politics. It's all politics all the time. We have a lot of politics here at the AML. Who gets to sit where and who has to do the dishes and things like that. So you started making these. Both things are interesting. I mean, the flight school thing is. So you own a flight school and you keep buying planes, and then eventually. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was gonna ask him a question, but I'll wait till after you finish.
No, my question wasn't that good. You go ahead and ask
Okay.
your question.
So Nick, what possessed you, for lack of a better word, to actually run a flight school, as opposed to going into like doing commercial piloting or other forms of piloting, private pilots or whatever? Why flight school?
Thanks. I mentioned to Lionel last night that I was a square peg and always have been. And business wants round pegs. So I left the chemistry lab in good standing. I just had enough of that. And started to work for a fixed base operator, a group of people that sell gasoline, and had a flight school and fixed airplanes, and had charters where you could go in and like a taxi, air taxi.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow I stepped on my toes there, and they kicked me out. But I had a wicked good student load, and there was a guy across the field that had some airplanes, and he and I got together, and I said, I'll use your airplanes if we can work together. And so that kept me afloat, and going forward. So but it kind of ended my chances or thoughts of going on with the airlines. Now, I avoided something very important here. You know what AIDS is, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Now I'm getting scared where we're going. But let's carry on.
Well, I avoided AIDS. Now that's airline induced divorce syndrome.
Oh, I didn't know that AIDS. Oh, okay.
So what I did was I started I started flying with this guy's airplanes, and that for a bunch of reasons he kind of went off into the in a different direction. I had to start buying airplanes, so I started buying airplanes and asked my wife to come in and help me in the business. So she was the office staff. She answered the phone and kept the books and did all the wonderful public relations when people came in, and I took them out and flew them around the pattern.
And what was your flight school called?
North Ramp Aviation.
Who? What?
It was North Ramp Aviation is what I called it.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
For a minute there, you were talking like the young guy. He was talking like the boy wonder. North Ramp Aviation.
Sorry.
North Ramp Aviation.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what was the biggest plane you owned?
We had a 2-engine airplane, a Beechcraft Duchess.
Wow.
That was a very nice airplane.
Yeah. And did you and your wife fly around in that just for the heck of it sometimes?
Not very often. Usually, actually, that was a lease back. Somebody else owned that. Largest airplane I owned was Cessna 172, a 4-seater.
Okay.
She and I would. Her parents lived in Boston, and my parents lived in Bennington, and she and I would look at each other on an hour trip or to Bennington, or an hour and a half trip to Boston, and say, "This is really the civil way to travel."
That's kind of like me sitting at the front of the plane when I travel nowadays.
That's great.
Yeah, exactly. That's very cool. It's a very cool story. That's what's so cool about interviewing all these people. Like you were a student. Do you know that you're 71?
No, not deep down inside.
Yeah, there you go. Because you've been just recently, or as recently as 2010, basically, you were a locomotive engineer. You've owned a flight school. You've been a chemist. Man, and now you've got this really cool company that's seems very successful. This NixTrainz, making these decoder buddies that I have no really idea what. I think I do. While you were talking, I think I figured it out because I found this on the instructions page. If you keep scrolling down in the instructions page, I think I'm getting it now. There's a picture of the Decoder Buddy V5 motherboard, But if you keep going down, there's the little board, there's the small connector board. That's where you put all the lights and stuff.
Yep.
So when you buy a V5, like how do you end up with both the bigger motherboard and the little one? Do they come together?
Yes, same package.
Okay. And then you put the little board just wherever it'll fit, kind of thing.
The little board fits right into that big motherboard.
Oh yeah, right. I saw that picture.
Lionel,
Yeah.
go to the help page.
The help page. Help.
And that first picture at the top.
Okay, there you go.
That shows the whole installation very nicely.
All right, so
You got your decoder and the little light board sitting on top of the Decoder Buddy.
right, and then the decoder is the black part, and the Decoder Buddy is the green part.
The Decoder Buddy is the thing sitting on the bottom. The decoder is the piece on the left with the round white thingy.
Right.
And then all your light connections are that little square board on the right.
And it's all in an Athearn Genesis SDP 45.
Exactly.
Ah, look at that. Southern Pacific.
Yes.
But Ralph hasn't weathered it yet.
Not yet.
No. You're now up to 5,000 of these things.
Yep.
Wow. And this is just in 2 years.
Yes.
And how do you figure, how do you figure people have found you?
I've been lucky. You and I've talked to Ken Patterson, and Joe Fugate's been very, very, very nice to me. The Model Railroad Hobbyist, and what's neat this week, Paul Gillette did a podcast with me a long time ago, and
you were also on Trained Masters TV, weren't you?
Yep, yes, thank you. And being on the on Facebook. My first venture into Facebook was about 1.5 years ago. Just had no use for it whatsoever, and then all of a sudden found out that it's as good a marketing tool as anything.
Okay, so you have a Facebook page then?
I do. It's NixTrainz, again spelled wrong.
Again spelled wrong. Okay, let me find it. We'll go there. This is actually all quite interesting, really, when you as you slowly figure it out. It's basically for all intents and purposes, it's just you take your decoder, plug it into the Decoder Buddy, and it just makes everything much simpler to install, basically, at the end of the day.
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he's got it.
Yeah.
Let me throw one more thing at you.
Oh, yeah, please do.
The one neat thing about it is you don't have to worry about resistors. You can take a raw LED or maybe an LED that came in from China or from one of the local distributors or wherever, with just 2 wires on it, LED 2 wires and no resistors. Put the black wire on the auxiliary function. Put the red wire on the U plus of the small connector board, and you're ready to go. You don't have to worry about resistors, resistances, and that whole set of calculations.
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to ask you about resistors because Bruce and I was talking about that just the other day.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's all taken care of for you.
I hate electronics. 2 things I hate: doing the laundry and electronics. I don't hate it. It's just,
it irks you.
Yeah, it irks me.
It's shocking.
It's shocking. Wow, and you got a video on here, and so it just seems like basically even for a brand new decoder that you would be installing in a slightly older Atlas, Kato, locomotive, a Jeep 7 or something like that, it just makes the whole installation process that much easier.
It does.
And there are so many locomotives out there that aren't of the newer. What would we call locomotives that started being manufactured DCC ready or DCC equipped? When did that start happening in great numbers? Like 5 years ago, maybe?
Oh, probably before that.
Yeah, I would say like maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Tops.
But it was pretty rare back then. But now it's like a lot of people expect new locomotives to come with the decoders installed and the sound installed and everything.
Yeah,
Right.
that's almost become the standard.
Mm-hmm.
But then you get the others who figure, no, I don't want to pay the extra $100. I'll get mine with no decoder or sound or anything from the factory and put my own in.
Yeah, is there much of that, do you think, Kaylee, where people are still buying them without this and they put their own in?
Seeing as I'm swamped, I would say yes.
That can't be much cheaper doing it that way, can it?
In the long run, probably not. But there are advantages. So, like some people don't particularly care for one brand or another, so they'll get it with no DCC and then just get the aftermarket and install it either by themselves or have me do it or whatever.
Right. Okay. So because
Either they want to standardize or they just didn't particularly care for one brand or
I think a good example is that Rapido recently had to switch decoders for whatever reason, their latest bunch of stuff, and people are swearing up and down, no, they don't want that decoder in it. They'll buy it just straight DC and put the decoder they want in it.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Because most of ScaleTrains.com, most of their stuff comes with Loc Sound, I think, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then Athearn, most of its stuff comes with soundtracks.
Yep.
And then TCS, are they getting pretty solid into the decoder game? Because I know they came out with that wireless throttle that's kind of like your channel changer kind of thing.
Yeah. So the sound, at least for sound, you have the big three, and I call it the big three: TCS, Soundtracks, and Loc Sound. Just right now, Bachmann and now Rapido are the main advocates for TCS sound sound decoders. But yeah, they're definitely the smaller of the big three.
I know,
but they're still a force to be reckoned with.
I know a guy that works for TCS. I'm pretty sure he does. I don't have no reason to think he doesn't. And his first name is Norm, and his last name is or maybe if we look at TCS decoders. You can jump in here anytime, Nick, and tell me who it is.
Sorry, I don't.
I know. I was just. Hey, how did you find the podcast? How did you stumble upon the podcast?
Actually, I almost stumbled upon you before I stumbled upon the podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I remember. How did that happen? Was I hitchhiking or something, or?
Well, pretty near. Actually, it was at Springfield, and you were with Rod Diary.
Okay.
Walking across, and I hadn't met Rod, but I forget how we made contact before, and I knew he was going to be there, so we kind of crossed paths there.
But did you start listening to the podcast before that?
No, and I just.
All right, time out. That doesn't add up. Now you're just making stuff up.
Actually, it's just been very recently that I've started listening to podcasts.
Okay. But you must have listened to the podcast before you got to Springfield. Otherwise, you wouldn't know who Rod Diary was. I've stumped him. Now he's probably been listening to the podcast like since 2017 or something. Yeah, now we're getting down to it. The Beechcraft Duchess is pretty cool.
That was a neat airplane.
Yeah. Yeah, but why is flying so complicated? I would like to be a pilot, except I'm too lazy to keep track of all that stuff. I like machines and I like all the dials and stuff, but like when I ride my motorcycles, you can either get the really fancy one with lots of buttons and dials, or you can get the more plain Jane one, which is the one I always buy, because I just don't feel like I need that many buttons and dials. Is it really complicated to fly a plane? Okay, Here's a good question for you. Oh, this is a great question. This will be the last. This is how we'll finish up. This is something I always wanted to ask a flight instructor. This is great. This is gonna be the highlight of my week. So one of my businesses for years and years and years has been simple driving school, and when we first started, of course, I would be in the car teaching people to drive and stuff like that. And more than once, I would return to the office and say, that person says they want to learn to drive or want to fly planes, and they're really having trouble making a left turn. I'm not so sure. I wouldn't want to be flying. Like, you must have had students where you're kind of going, I'll just take over now and we'll return to the field.
Yeah. We had a bag of golf balls for those people.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'll bite.
You could either fly an airplane or maybe it's time to learn how to play golf.
Is it pretty much the same? I mean, when you get a handle on it pretty much like 10 minutes into the first lesson, you're kind of going, well, this will be easy to teach this person, or you're thinking, this isn't going to be much fun, and I hope I have my insurance paid up.
Yeah. It's fairly obvious a lot of the time. There was a time, certainly when I was working in the larger, at the FBO at the flight school, where an awful lot of people who were challenges would get sent to me. I enjoyed the challenge of taking a person who was challenged to learn the mechanics or the thoughts or the things that keep you safe in an airplane.
Right. And then on the other side of that coin, though, I bet you there was a lot of people that didn't necessarily grasp it right away, but were very dedicated to learning, and through your training ended up being pretty darn good pilots.
Thank you. I like to think that anyway. I haven't left any trees very late or lately.
Yeah, so I mean that's probably pretty rewarding, helping somebody learn to fly that really wants to do it and really tries hard to learn.
Lionel, I always said when they went through the final hoop, I went through it with them.
Okay.
Yeah, it was a very, very, very great, good feeling.
Yeah, I'll bet it was. And you did that for like roughly 20 years. You had a flight school?
I did.
That's pretty cool. And how about this for a question, Bruce and Kaylee? And I want an honest answer, Nick. I want an honest answer.
Good luck.
This question is no good unless you give an honest answer. After trying to explain the Decoder Buddy to me, would you feel comfortable trying to teach me how to fly a plane?
Ooh.
There you go.
The difficult part about flying a plane is taking off and landing. The part, once you're up in the air and cruising along, it's not that tough. I've been up with a friend, and he's let me fly for, I think I probably flew for 20, 25 minutes one time, and it's not that bad. You just got to look out and make sure you know what you're doing. But it's the takeoff and landing that's the tricky part. Once you get the rest under control, you're laughing.
My buddy Bill, over a few years ago, I had a bit of a few medical issues, and he's a commercial pilot for Air Canada, and his dad.
That's right.
And his dad was a test pilot for de Havilland. I got great stories, and this guy was flying since he was 5, so he decided that he was going to rent a plane. From a local airport, and he was going to take me flying a couple of times, and we had a ball, and he insisted that I could fly.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't like working the pedals.
Right.
That wasn't my thing. And I mean, it was fun flying it and all that, but looking at the gauges and all that stuff, there must be
memorizing all the acronyms.
Yeah, acronyms. And why don't people on airplanes? Why isn't the radio chatter clearer? I would never be able to pick up on that. I'd be constantly saying, the audio is not good enough. Nick, you seem like a really fun guy.
Thank you.
You'll be at Springfield this year, I bet you, eh?
I hope to be Springfield. Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So let's make sure we find each other and say hi and stuff like that.
That's a promise.
Yeah, that would be fun because you seem like a very good, a very fun guy, but I don't know, what's the word I'm looking for? Genuine. You seem like a very genuine person.
Thank you.
And that's always it's always fun dealing with genuine people. I've enjoyed this greatly because I understand what it is you're doing. You've made a product that makes decoder installations considerably more easier than it was before you started, and now it's flying off the shelves.
Mm-hmm. Now, quick question for you, Nick. Did you end up doing the engineering yourself, or did you have someone else help you with the design?
I'm a hack. I played with electronics for a long time, and I was fortunate in meeting a man who is an electrical engineer who straightened the resistors out and made boards much nicer than my initial boards. I don't think I need to say any more than that. I'm very proud of what he's done for me.
You had the concept. He polished it.
He did.
He got you started.
Actually, I got me started.
Okay.
I did the first 1,000 boards right out, almost directly off the presses in China.
Oh, good for you.
And then bumped into him, and he and I've worked very well together since then. He's been a good guy to be with too.
All right. Hey, Kaylee, I'm looking at a picture from the Vermont Railway. That's a fun. We got to talk more about the Vermont railway system too, because it seems like you got a lot of knowledge about that, and it seems like it'd be cool. It seems like it would be a fun railroad to rail fan all through there.
There's there are a lot of people that take a lot of pictures of it. Kevin Burkholder is one to watch, and there's I can't say the other guy's name, but there are a couple guys that take an awful lot of pictures of Vermont Railway, and they're just very good.
And I'm looking at a picture here of the Jeep 40 310.
310, yep.
Yeah, and it's a Jeep 40 2W. Do you know what the W stands for, Kaylee?
Person of width.
Yeah.
Locomotive of width.
It's a wide cab. It's Jeep 40 2W. Remember when we were talking on Prototype Posse? I was all excited because I realized the first wide cabs were back in the 70s.
But technically, they're wide noses, not wide cabs.
Well, everybody refers to them as wide cabs, but you're right. Technically, they are. They've just widened the nose.
You know that the colors that came in on before it was painted red.
Canadian National.
That's right.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yes. There's an interesting fact though that people don't. I bet you people don't realize how. Because you would think that I think generally people think the wide cab is from, or the wide nose. Then it would be WN, wouldn't it, Bruce?
Oh, just W for wide.
Oh.
Locomotive
the cab's the same width.
I wonder if Tracy Boyd would like. She's. Have you heard
called
of
on the person of width or person?
Yeah,
of size
Nick. We have our own personal. The AML network has our own official flight attendant.
Yes,
Tracy Boyd, and I wonder if she would at the end of my name would put, Lionel Strang WB. Have you ever flown on Southwest, Nick?
I have not.
Yeah, they have this rush seating. I'm very concerned about trying it out. I'm thinking I got to have my name on my chest or something.
No,
I'm very concerned I'm going to get trampled in the aisle. I think that's it, kids. I think we've had a lot of fun with this. Nick, I hope everybody. So you still haven't figured out. You still didn't tell us how you found the podcast.
I'm afraid that's one of the things that got lost in the shuffle. I don't remember.
Yeah, you were just looking for something to listen to, and you found us.
Yep, it's great though. I walk for 2 hours a day, and the podcast is 2 hours. And when it's over, I sit down.
Okay. And what do you have a particular favorite thing or something you'd like improved, or are you just happy with the way it is?
I like actually the whole podcast. I'm starting to learn the formats of the different names. I thought the prototype ones were just incredible. Listening to Kaylee and Spoon, and I was just blown away. I said, "Boy, I don't know whether I can be with these people. They're just so knowledgeable."
There you go. You hear that, Kaylee?
Thank you. No, I appreciate that. That's awesome.
Kaylee
I don't claim to be the most knowledgeable person with railroads, so
Kaylee gets embarrassed when she gets complimented. She doesn't handle compliments well. People tell her, "Hey, Kaylee, you're great at such and such," and she just kind of giggles and goes, "Okay." See that, Kaylee? You're popular. Nick loves listening to you on the Prototype Posse.
True. I do. I like it.
All right. Bruce, can you give out our email address?
Sure.
Thank you.
Oh, you want me to? Oh, I thought you were just checking.
I know.
Yes.
That's my favorite thing when I call an office and they say, can I talk to such and such? Certainly. May I tell them who's calling? Sure. Knock yourself out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Our email address, Modeler's Life, that's modelers with one L, modelerslife@gmail.com.
That's right. And we have a website. This is on the free channel. This is probably, Nick, you probably won't hear this till towards the end of 2020 or the beginning of 2021, just because we have a stockpile with all, we've had a chance to stockpile some, but that's okay. I don't think your Decoder Buddy goes bad. You don't have to keep it refrigerated or nothing.
Nope. It'll be fine. I will look forward to it, though.
Yeah, me too. I'm looking forward to listening to it when I edit it. So we have a website called themodelerslife.com. And if you go to that website and you want to send us an email, you have the address. But on the website, you will see a photo of Bruce, the moderately agitated mailboy, in a particularly agitated state. And if you just click on his picture, you will automatically be able to send us an email, which is really slick.
It's wonderful modern technology.
Yeah, and we have a link to the Patreon page. If you have not joined the Patreon page and you cannot get enough of Kaylee, you got to join the Patreon page for $5 a month or 16 cents a day, and you can listen to twice as many podcasts, which is a lot of fun. And Kaylee calls that the Antics channel.
Yep, it's our Antics channel where we have lots of fun.
Lots and lots of fun. And I guess,
and depending on which level Patreon you are, there are perks to being a Patreon.
Yeah, and if you're in the $10 level, you get shirts and swag and all kinds of cool stuff. I just got in a bunch more swag that I'm looking forward to sending out. I just sent Mick Shea a whole box of swag.
Wow.
And then also too, by joining Patreon, you get access to Wednesday night hangout.
It's right.
True enough.
On Wednesday night, all the Patreon folks get together in our virtual chat, and Ted Johnson is there, and Chris Costello, and people from all over the world show up in that and our buddy Craig Drenko, not Drenkow, Drenko. He'll show up, and people from all over show up on that. That's really cool.
Our good buddy Jim Sacco was there last night.
Yeah, I saw that. I almost fell on the floor when I saw that. Who are some of the other people that show up on that page?
Chris Stiles was there.
Yes, Chris Stilson.
Chris Stilson. The Fit guy was there last night.
Oh, yeah, Chris Adams, Mr. Fitness.
Tracy was there.
That's right. Tracy was there, and Spoon was there.
Spoon was there.
And Ron Marsh. And let's not forget to say that, hey, you know what you got to do, Nick? I'll broker this deal. You got to send some of these to our buddy Ron Marsh at Ron's Trains and Things. He's our official video guy, and he could do a review of your product.
I will.
Yeah. Tell him Lionel sent you.
Okay.
Yeah. Probably not. All right, Nick, at the appropriate time, do you know what you have to say right at the end?
I do.
Wow, cool. Well, Nick,
we'll find out.
Yeah, we'll find out. Well, Nick, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
flight instructors.
No.
So close.
Not even. No, I wouldn't even give him a so close on that one.
That's a pop up to second base.
Yeah. Yeah, we're down. It's the bottom of the ninth. We're down 5-2. We've loaded the bases. They're 2 out, and the guy comes up and just pops it out to second base. You have to say happy rails to you.
Okay,
All right. You want to try again?
I'll try again.
All right. Well, Nick, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
Happy trails to you.
So close.
So close.
He's getting closer.
And take 3.
Yeah. It's happy. It's not trail. It's rails, not trails. Rails.
Ah,
Yeah. And
see,
no.
deaf in one ear and can't hear out of the other.
Well, that's fair. That's fair enough. And don't take this personally, but we kind of frown on singing.
Okay.
So it's happy rails to you.
Got it.
Okay.
In spoken word.
In spoken word. Well, Nick, as we close the barn doors on another episode of A Modeler's Life, and the sun slowly sets over the back 40, I guess there's nothing else left to do except for you to say,
Happy rails to you.
While in Busted Knuckle, guests of A Modeler's Life podcast stay at the Casa del Sol Motor Court and Inn, where late-night dancing at the Rumba Room is a magical event to be experienced.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
beautiful.
Well done.
Only took a half an hour.
Let's say practice makes perfect.
Yeah, that's what they say. And this guy was just teaching people how to be thousands of feet in the air.